Ladies and gentlemen, as usual, I'm very excited to be with you for another subject and topic about project management. And today I'm going to be talking about the concept of scheduling resources and the costs. When are the costs going to be incurred? And what this is really doing, it's actually building on what we have discussed with you and explained last week. So last week, we started talking about building a network diagram and how do you calculate a network diagram. The week before, I spoke about a scope. I spoke about how do we create a work breakdown structure. So as you can see, what's happening is exactly what I have promised you. I promised you that we will get to a stage where every week is going to become the input for the next week. And that's why coming and attending that class will make it easier for you to absorb the knowledge that comes in the week after it. And that's really what we're doing at this stage. So today there's another topic, and that's obviously related to the previous topic. You cannot do it without the previous topic. And we're going to really understand today, when we are trying to deliver projects, we have different types of projects. We have projects at what we call our time constraints. In other ways, they must be completed by a certain day. Or we have projects that are resource constrained, which means I don't have more people to give you or more machines to give you and so on. Which means if the project is going to take longer for you to be delivering that, then that's something we need to go and actually try to go and accept. We're going to identify the different types of resource constraints. There are so many various resource constraints. We're going to try to explain those constraints for you. We're going to describe how smoothing is used on time constraint projects. So if it's a time constraint, we'll go and see, well, I have a limited resources, but I have what we call a slack. I have some activities could be delayed. So you ask yourself, can I delay some activities? And this way, instead of using so many resources at the beginning and not many after, why don't you make it more kind of balanced and still meet the project within the specified time that we would like to go and deliver it? We talk about resource leveling, which is when we have a resource constrained project. If we don't have so many people or equipment or so on, what would we do? Well, what we would do is we would say, let's ensure everybody is only working 8 hours a day. And let's go and extend the due date of that project. Or sometimes you might say, let's pay people overtime to make them work, but let's extend the duration of that project. We can understand how project management software creates resource constraint schedules, because you will have that. There will be a constraint in the schedule, and project management could help you, like things like Microsoft Project, for instance. We can understand when and why splitting tasks should be avoided. Splitting tasks is where you start a task, you stop it for a second, then you go and start another task, and you come again to start the task. So you kind of stop and start and stop and start. And that really adds time to how long a task is going to actually go and take you. What we also then do is we're going to go and identify general guidelines for assigning people to specific tasks. So do we assign them to the task where there's minimum slack? Do we assign to the task where minimum ID number? Do we assign tasks where the shortest durations? All of that. And we're going to explain why a time phase budget baseline is needed. Time phase is like we're saying, for week 1, I need that much money. For week 2, I need that much money. For week 3, I need that much money. Because after week 1, you can then compare what you've achieved in comparison to how much money you spent. Are you ahead of budget or behind budget? Okay, you need to analyze that. We're going to talk about creating a time phased project budget baseline. So the whole project, how much I need for every period of time. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is just a kind of something that happens a lot of times in a project environment. We realize our project can't work even if we execute it perfectly. All right, well, it can't work. So what are we going to do? Well, our boss's plan is, let's go over budget. Let's get everybody to have attention on us and hope an executive will cancel the project because of his own political reasons. Okay, now, do you agree that evil is a cure for incompetence? Don't make me say it. So it's evil, it's a poor approach for us to go and decide when something needs to stop. You know, we're not going to go and work bad on the project simply so that people will notice that, simply because they're going to go and cancel it. As project managers, we have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to ensure anytime there's a mistake, anytime there's something that could inhibit our ability to go and progress towards a goal, we need to do everything in our power to try to solve that problem. Not try to solve it by working in an inefficient manner and waste company resources. Now, continuing on that, we're going to talk about the problem, you know, the resource problem. Project network, you know, we went last week and we started building a network. We said this comes first, this comes next, this comes after, and so on. You put a start time, you put an end time, you put a slack calculation, you've done all of these things. But you do not have a project plan yet. And the reason why is you don't really have a schedule. You only will have a schedule if you've allocated resources to all of these tasks on a network diagram. Because sometimes a resource might require, a task on a network diagram might require 5 people. And while you might say it's going to finish in day 4, because we don't have enough people to deliver that task, it might not finish till day 10. So the whole schedule is wrong and is pushed. You want to do it correctly, you need to know, who am I allocating to that task? How many resources I have? And if you have enough resources to allocate to a specific activity on a network diagram, then that's a proper schedule. If not, then that schedule that is already on your network diagram needs to be pushed because you do not have enough resources. So you cannot assume that you have as many resources as you need. That is not correct. That is not legitimate. That's not how it works. You need to add, adding new project requires making a judgment. Do I actually have enough resources to complete the project within the expected timelines? Now, as the same way I said that a project is not a schedule, a network diagram plan is not a schedule until you allocate resources. At the same time, my estimate of costs are not a budget until I think about the time phase. When do I need each amount of money? Do I need it in week 1, week 10, or week 17? Because you need to know how much you need per week to save a plan. You know, I'm planning to spend $10 by week 1. Then you can compare what you're doing against the plan that you have. In essence, we overlay the previous time-oriented network, which is we planned last week, the time, the network diagram, start time, end time, and so on. We overlay that network diagram with the resources and cost that we require. Now, ladies and gentlemen, does that make sense so far? Is that clear? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. So let's move on. Anytime there's anything not clear, please remember you can chat with me. I'll be looking at the chat as we are moving along with the lecture. So you get stuck, you're not sure, you stop for a second and you do ask me. Let's continue. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the project planning process is very simple. It starts from what I've covered a few weeks back. I said, we know the scope. What are we trying to deliver? And I said from the scope, we create a work breakdown structure, which will divide my tasks into all of these activities and sub-activities and sub-activities that we need to go and complete. And for these sub-activities, we start assigning people to do them. Now, these activities that we create in a work breakdown structure, it's only a list. What we do then is we go and create a network diagram. We say, okay, this is the list. From this list, let's decide what comes first, what comes after from all of these activities listed on the work breakdown structure. Then from the network, we go and say, all right, let me make that network, which is focused on the time, let me make it a scheduled plan by allocating to that network enough resources, or how many resources I have. And because I allocate resources and I know how much money does each resource will cost me, and I know when I need them, I can know the scheduling is correct because I know whether I can meet the plan on time. And at the same time, I can see the cost that is going to be incurred throughout various times of the project. Now, the time-focused network diagram, alongside with the resource, okay, that we have here, resource and cost scheduling, all of these together will give me my master plan, which I can see here. Now, at all times, I'll also need to be looking at my risk, what sort of risk I have in my project, because any risk that you have will affect whether you can achieve your project within the right time and the right budget. For example, if you have an emergency like COVID situation and everything stops and you, let's say, building a construction project, then your time is going to be pushed and probably your scheduling is going to be pushed. The amount of resources available is going to be pushed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there are a number of problems to consider. When staff and equipment are added to the schedule, we need to ask ourselves this first question. Will the resources I've assigned be adequate to the tasks that I have on hand? And do the resources I have assigned, are they actually available? If I don't have enough resources, or if they're not adequate or they're not available when I want them, we go and ask, well, do I need to outsource some work and get someone else to go and deliver that job to us? Another thing to consider is, are there resource dependencies? Resource dependencies mean is to do activity 2, do I need to go and do activity 1? And do I need for activity 1 a certain resource that if it's not available, it's going to delay activity 1, and later it's going to delay activity 2 because of that resource that is not available for activity 1. Now, if activity 1 and 2 are linked, and if the person who needs to do activity 1 is not there, then guess what? Activity B is going to go and be delayed. So are they resource dependencies? Is this task resources depending on this task resources? And if yes, it is going to impact on a critical path. Imagine you have an activity on the critical path where there's no enough resources. What does that actually mean? It means the duration of the overall project will definitely have to change. It's going to be taking you longer. And the reason why is because the critical path is where every activity on that network path doesn't have any slack at all. So any delay in any activity will delay how long the project is going to actually take. Now, another thing to consider, do we have any flexibility in using resources? For example, do I have so much slack for one activity? And because I have a lot of slack, I can, for example, move and use the resource at another time. Let's say I'm using people so much in week 2, but I can delay one of those activities to week 3, and this way I will use less resources in week 2. If you can do that, that's what we call flexibility. Now, sometimes when there's, when you have enough resources and when you have activities that have a slack, you can push and have some flexibility in your items. Finally, you need to ask yourself, is the original deadline that has been set to us by planning a network diagram, are they actually realistic? Can they be achieved within the timelines that we went and said we are going to be delivering something? The answer would simply be maybe yes, maybe no. The no is because we made a plan without thinking if we have enough resources. So it's obviously not going to be realistic. Now, there's something called resource smoothing, or what we call it also resource leveling. What does that mean? Well, we are trying to even out varying demand on resources by using Slack. In other words, if I have so much demand on resources in weeks 2 and week 3, and little demand in week 4 and 5, what I might do, I might reduce demand in weeks 2 and 3, push that demand between week 2 and 3 to weeks 4 and 5, and that means I'm using less resources in week 2 and 3 and more resources in week 4 and 5, in a way that I try to create a balance between the resources need at any point of time. You're going to say, why would we do that? The answer to that is very simple, because that will reduce the maximum number of people you will need on your project at any point of time. So you will reduce how many people will really be assigned to your project by doing that. So what we do is any activity that is not critical, we try to go and delay it. We manage resource utilization, when resources are adequate over the life of the project. I talk sometimes about resource constrained scheduling. Resource constraint means, look simple, I do not have more people. I do not have more equipment. So what I need to do, I need to delay the start of some activities. I just don't have resources, which means I will have to go and potentially push the deadline for my project forward. Why? Well, simple, we don't have enough resources. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when I talk about a project, we talk about various types of constraints to think about. The first one is what we call technical or logical constraint. BJ, I have a question for you. BJ?
Yes, sir.
Okay, BJ, one very quick question, my friend.
Yes, please.
I have an application that I'm trying to go and develop for a client.
Okay.
Could you please tell me what are the main tasks I need to do to develop an application?
First would we get the requirements.
Yes. Then?
And plan a design.
Yes.
And then form a team.
Okay. Well, I need to form the team before I even get any requirements, but continue.
And then make some flowcharts and algorithms.
Okay, and then?
And then ask the developers to start working on different modules.
Okay, and then they develop it. What happened then?
And then integrate all the modules.
Okay, and what do you need to do in the background when you make this integration? So after you develop it, what do you need to do?
I'm not sure.
What do we do after we develop a software, guys? What do we do after it? Testing. And after testing, what happens? Thank you very much, everybody. Ranjit, everybody communicating with me. I love it. Okay, what happened after testing?
Execution.
Execution, we go, we release it and so on. Now, let me ask you a question. Can I test before I develop?
Oh, sorry, no, you can't.
Okay, can I develop before I understand the requirement?
No.
No, we can't. Okay, and that's what we call a technical or logical constraint. It means something has to happen first before the next thing is going to happen. And that's a technical constraint. I cannot test before I develop. That's a technical constraint. That activity must happen first before the next activity needs to happen. Another constraint to think about is physical constraint. Activities that cannot occur in parallel or are affected by contractual or environmental conditions. I'll give you one example. You might have resources you might have a machine available. It is available. It is with your company. But that machine might be working in another location, and by the time you're going to bring it to the second location, you need to wait a certain period of time before that machine could be used because it needs to be moved from one location to another location. On another perspective, there's a resource constraint, which means I don't have the resource. It's not even available. The absence, the shortage, the unique interrelationship and interaction characteristics, that we need. So that resource simply is not there. That person we don't have. That material extra we don't have. That equipment we don't have. It's not like we have it and it's somewhere else, like the physical constraint. We just don't have that extra resources. And because we don't have it, we need to start thinking, how do we go and deliver our project within specific expected timelines? Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you go and think about a technical constraint, I need to start, I need to pour concrete. After I pour the concrete, I'll put the frame, build the frame on the concrete. And after I put the frame, I can put the roof. And after I put the roof, it's finished. And same as IT. I have to design first, then I can code, then I can test, then I can finish. So that's a technical constraint. Something must be done before something else is able to start. Resource constraint is where I don't have enough people. Like if I want to plan, let's say I'm planning a wedding. I need to purchase refreshment, decorate a hall, hire a band, and then go to reception. The problem is you might not have enough people to do all of these tasks. If you have enough people, they can't be in different places at the same time. So that's what we call a physical constraint. If you do have enough people, then everybody could go. One will go to purchase refreshment, one will go to decorate, one will go to hire a band. And then together they all will go to the reception. If, however, you do not have a people, let's imagine the bride is doing every single activity, which means planning will happen, then these activities will need to happen sequentially. We need to hire the band, then decorate the hall, then purchase refreshments or whatever changes you make, and then you go to reception. So things will start becoming sequential, which means it is going to increase the time is going to be taking to go and get the project to be delivered. Now, we talk about time constrained projects. A project must be completed by a certain date. Now, ladies and gentlemen, could anybody tell me an example in IT where a project must be completed by a certain date? Give me one example.
IT assignment.
IT assignment. It has to be completed by a certain date. What happens if you don't get it by a certain date?
We have
Penalties.
Penalties. Now, let's link this example to what actually happens in a real IT project in real life. If you are working with a company and the company gave you a fixed cost project, or you took a contract, you said, the project is going to cost you that much money, okay? You made the plan. What happened if that project will take longer? What happened to your company?
It'll cost more.
It's going to cost more. Can your company go and say, well, it did take more time, so I want more money now?
No, they can't.
You have to plan accordingly. It's time constrained. I need to manage my resources well. Any problem needs to be sorted out immediately because that is the actual project. Now, time is fixed. If you need more people to finish it, that's really important. I'm going to give you an example outside IT, but in a construction company, when you are signing a contract with a big builder and you're building a building, if you are late for one single day from where you should be, there are fines that could exceed $20,000 per day just because you're late one day. It is really important to finish on time. We're talking about COVID at the moment. We want to go and deliver a COVID application, which is what you guys are doing for your assignment. It needs to be done quickly. It needs to be done on time. Why? Well, because the longer it's going to take us, the more people are likely to be dying, because we'll have less ability to track people's occurrence of that specific virus. Resource constraint, well, guys, simple. I just don't have more people. You have to deal with it. I don't know how. It's your problem. Resources are fixed. Time, well, we're flexible. If we have lack of resources, it will mean that it's going to go and delay how long the project is going to take us. Now, as we said earlier, time constraint project must be done by a specific date. And because it must be done by a specific date, we try to use leveling technique that focus on balancing or smoothing resource demand. What does that mean? What I said earlier, I said, if I have an activity or that has a lot of slack, then why am I going to go and use all of those people in week 2 if I can move them to week 4 and still finish on time? Let me try to balance the use of my resources at various points of time. We use Slack, which delays non-critical activities, to manage my resource utilization over the duration of my project. Now, I want to show you this example. Now, look here. I have 2 backhoe. Okay, it's a garden. I have 2 backhoe. I need 2 people here. I need 4 people in weeks 4 to week 10. I need 1 person between weeks 10 and week 16. And I need 3 people between week 16 and week 24. So if we were to do the project this way, you will notice that between weeks 4 and weeks 10, how many people I need, guys, between weeks 4 and weeks 10?
Four people.
4 people, that is correct. I need 4 people. So weeks 0 to 4, I need 2 people. Sorry, 2 people, yeah. Weeks 4 to 6, I'll need 4 people. Weeks 10 to 16, I need 1 person. And week 16 to 24, I need 3 people. Notice 2, 4, 1, 3. Is that a good allocation of resources? What do you think? Is that good?
No, it is not.
It's poor. So if you go and look this way, you say, okay, I'm needing 2 people here, 4 people here, 1 person here, and 3 people here. But let's think about it. I have 2 people required here, yeah? Can you see this, 0 to 4? I can then say, well, I also have 2 people needed here. So why don't I do this one, 2 people, this one, 2 people, and then here I need 3 people anyway, so why don't they push this and this forward? Because, actually, sorry, we can't do that. We have to do this first, because you see here there's a slack. Look, the slack. There's slack, so I can delay this activity. I can delay this activity. So what we do, we say, we do this one first, then we do this one and this one, which means I will still be using 2 people. But this one here that can be delayed, look at the slack, I'll push this activity here to week 10 to 16, which means I will have 2 people here, 1 person here, that makes it 3, 2 people here, 2 people here, 3 people here, and 3 people here, which is like this. Look, 2 people, that's 2. This one here, okay, I can't delay that, there's no slack, so I'm gonna still do that. This one here, I'm gonna do it here. That makes sure that I have 2 people. So that's it. Okay, I now have 2 people between 4 and between 10. All right. If I have now 4 people between weeks 4 and 10, and I only have 3 people available, let's look. Now this one have a slack. I'll push this forward, which means I'll now need, 3 here and 1 here. That's 3 people. And then I will say, okay, great. That's the last activity. I'll have it here. Okay, between 16 and 24. Now notice how my maximum resources required used to be 4, and now my maximum resource required have actually dropped to just 3. Now have a look for a minute to absorb what I just said to you guys, and if you're not sure, just ask me a question now. And by the way, every question is very welcome. I just noticed somebody just joined us now. Welcome. I think Zaka, maybe. Just welcome, guys. Just keep on coming early, guys, because this is really, really important.
No, sir, I'm on time.
Okay, maybe someone else. Sorry, man. Just the list kind of is all over the shop. I haven't run the report, but yeah, mate, just for someone who just came in, just continue coming on time, please. Now, my friends, do you understand what I just showed you here? Any questions?
All good, sir.
All right, perfect. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we spoke about resource demand leveling. Resource demand leveling is here. Instead of making, instead of doing all the activities at the same time, we'll push some activities that have slack. That's what we're talking about. Now, you're going to say, well, what's the advantage of us, pushing the items forward? Now, if we push the items forward, if we push this item and the item is now between weeks 10 and week 16, do I have any slack left? If this activity has been pushed from 4 to 10 to 10 to 16, do I have any slack left? What do you think? How many days slack do I have here? 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so this is 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 13, 13 to 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, 6 days. Yeah? Here, the activity require 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 6 days. So if I was to push this activity for 6 days to start in day 10, do I have any more slack left? Zaka, do I have any more slack left? If I push this activity 6 days and started in week 10, that's all. You see this arrow means slack. If I push it to start here and finish here, do I have any more slack left?
No.
No more slack left. It will be gone. Okay? So that's what we're talking about. The advantages of using this leveling technique is my peak resource demand are reduced. So instead of needing 4 people, I just need 3 people maximum. That's an advantage. Resources over the life of the resource are reduced. Fluctuation and resource demand are minimized. Instead of having 2 and then 4 and then 1 and then 3, you make it more smooth. 2, 2, 3, 3. Okay? When you need to get resources, you make it more stabilized. The disadvantage of using resource allocation is any flexibility that you have, it basically gets reduced. Because I'm reducing the slack, I have less flexibility. I'm losing it because of this reduction. Which means activities like activity 2, because it has no more slack, it becomes part of the critical path, which means it cannot be delayed anymore. So we start having increase in the criticality of activities. We'll have more activities considered to be on the critical path. Now, resources constrained project. Resources are limited in quantity or availability. Therefore, we need to sequence the activities taking into account both the time we need to complete the time by and the resources that are available. So you need to think about both. Now, if we say we have a resource constrained project, and if we want to minimize how long this project is going to take us, we need to follow some rules. And those rules are very important for you to learn, because we're going to go and apply them a bit later in your tutorial, and there will be potentially in your final exam and even in your quiz too. So let's talk about them. If you have a resource constrained project, how do you decide which activity you do first? Now, to answer this question, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, I need to start with the activity that is with a minimum slack. Yes? Oh, yes, that's what I need to do. So the first thing, if you have a limited number of resources, is you go and start allocating the activities that have a minimum slack. So you allocate people you allocate your limited resources to the activities that have a minimum number of slack available. After you've allocated people to the activity that has a minimum slack, the next thing you do is you go and allocate people to the activity that have the smallest duration. You can say, why the smallest duration? Because the smallest duration means I can immediately go and do other activities that might take longer and not delay activities that might require a different resource. You know, for example, one activity might require a developer, one activity might develop a tester. If I have an activity needing a developer for 1 day, and then I have an activity that a tester needs to do for 6 days, I will have to finish this activity first, because otherwise the tester will be waiting and doing nothing. So you go and choose the activity that have a smallest duration. Niha, you had a question? Tell me. Niha?
Yes, sir.
You just raise your hand. So tell me, what do you have? Tell me. You have a question?
Sorry, sir, by mistake.
By mistake. Anybody have a question? Raise your hand.
Sorry, sir.
That's okay. Look, you're important to me. Every one of you is. And that's why I'm stopping, because if you have a question, we'll stop until you get what you need to know. So no problem at all. Don't apologize. Okay. So we don't have enough resources. What do? We go and look at the activity that has a minimum number of slack first. So 0 slack, for instance. Then we do the activity that has a smallest duration. So we go and choose this activity because we don't want to delay another activity that might require a different resource. Then we choose the activity that have the lowest activity identification number. What does that mean? Well, activities have a numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or they have a character A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If you followed rule number 1 and you followed rule number 2 and there's nothing else to follow, you follow rule number 3, which is the lowest activity identification number. We're going to apply this rule now, and I'll show you how you do it, because you'll need to learn that. Now, the parallel method is used to apply those heuristics. In other ways, we start, looking at every one of those activities. We'll look at every row, and then we'll decide what activities we want to do. We do the one side, the second side, and so on. So the parallel method, it's an iterative process starting at the first time period of the project. So start with all the activities that are on day 0 and schedule period by period. So we schedule period 1, who are we gonna assign the resources to? Schedule week 2, week 3, week 4, and so on. So it's an iterative process starting at the first step of the project, schedule period by period, the start of any activities using the 3-point rules that I've mentioned above. Now, let's look how that gets applied. Now, this is the example, guys. Let me ask you a question. This example up here, do you know how we got to that? Do you know how we got this?
Yes.
This is a simple network diagram that you've done last week. The only addition to that is, you see this one here? 2P, 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 1P, 1P. If you look here in the center, what does that mean? That means how many resources I need to do activity 1. I need 2 people. How many do activity 2? 2 people. Here, the ID. You know how I told you there's rule number 3, lowest identification number? That's the ID. So ID number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Early start, early finish, latest start, latest finish, and all of this is a slack. And here, dur means the duration of each activity. Is that all clear? This is basic stuff. We just added to it the resources.
Sir, how do you make that legend?
You don't need to make it, but this legend is basically telling you what's in this box. So here, what does this? This is early start. What is this? That's early finish. What is this? It's the duration of the project. What is this? Which is here, how many resources we have available. Oh, sorry, how many resources we need for that activity. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yes. No question, sir.
No, there was, who asked me the question?
Sir, one more time, please.
Okay, Sujata, this legend
sir.
is representing what information is in each of these network diagram boxes. So this is early start. So this and this and this and this and this and this and this, they're all referring to the early start of an activity. This is the ID. In other words, what have I numbered that activity? So this, I numbered the activity 7. This, I numbered the activity 5. This, I numbered the activity 2. Okay? This one here is duration. How long is it going to take? Well, this will take 2. This will take 6. This will take 4, and so on. And this one here, how many resources do we need to complete that task? Well, I need 2 people here, 2 people here, 2 people here, and so on. Does that answer your question, Sujata?
Yes, sir. And then that slack?
The slack is later start minus early start. So 10 minus 10 equals 0.
So that happens in all, yeah?
What's that?
So that late start minus early start equals to slack?
Yes, so this 4 minus 2 equal 2, which means we can delay activities, activity 2, we can delay it by 2 days.
Okay, sir. Yes, got it now.
Okay, so Jata, I highly recommend you also go over the lecture that I've recorded last week, because it's all about this network diagram. We've done some examples. It's towards the second half of your lecture last week. So if you
Yes, sir. And in tutorial too, yeah?
absolutely. So it's
Yes.
tutorial 3, not 2.
Yes, sir. In tutorial.
If there's anything you're not sure about, go through that also. And if you have any question, make sure you ask.
Okay, sir. Is this gonna come in our quiz too?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir.
No worries. Now, let me ask you this question, guys. Now, we are following the rule, and the rule says we start with the activity that have 0 slack. Now here, which activity do I start with first? Which activity do I start with first?
Activity 1.
1. How many people I need for activity 1?
2.
And how many days do I need them for?
2.
2.
I will need 2 people to work on activity 1, that's 1. And they're going to work between day 0 and day 2, which is between 0 and 2. Does that make sense?
Can you show us, please, again?
So we have to start with this activity. This activity requires 2 people. And these people need to be allocated for a duration of 2 days. So 2 days, which mean between 0 and 2. This is activity 1. Between days 0 and 2, I need to assign 2 people for activity 0 to 1 and 2 people for the day 1 to 2. And that's why I've allocated 2 people at this stage. Does that make sense?
Okay, sir.
Does that make sense, guys? Anybody have any other questions?
So can you repeat once?
Okay, so we need 2 people. Okay, this one here is telling you need 2 people. So that's the resources.
Yeah.
And it's telling you need those 2 people for a duration. How long is the duration?
2 days.
For 2 days.
Yeah.
So between day 0 and day 2,
Yeah.
I need 2 people for each day.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I need 2 people for day 1. This is day 1.
Mm.
And 2 people for day 2.
Day 2. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we have to move to this section now. Let me ask you, the rule states, first we look for the activity that have a minimum slack. Which activity between these 3 has minimum slack?
Activity number
0 slack.
4.
Activity number
3.
3. Activity number 3 have 0 slack, correct?
Yes.
And when is the early start for activity 3?
2.
2. When is the early finish?
2.
6.
6.
No, sorry, 6. No.
So between day 2 and day 6, which is, can you see me? I'm highlighting that. Between day 2 and day 6, can you see that?
Yes.
How many people I need between day 2 and day 6?
4.
No,
No.
I need 2 people.
2 people
2 people.
2
Yeah.
people per day.
per day. Yeah.
Okay, so between day 2 and day 6, this one here, between day 2 and day 6, I need 2 people
Per day.
per day. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So activity 3 have 0 slack. So we have, by the rule that I've explained in the previous slides, we have to do this activity first. It will start on day 2, finish on day 6. Yes. And we need 2 people per day. So that's day 2. That's day 6. 2 people, 2 people, 2 people, 2 people.
So we always take minimum one, right?
That's the first rule. Okay?
Yes,
The
sir.
first rule, you start with the activity with the minimum slack. So I'll go back. You start with the activity with minimum slack. Can you see that? Then you do the activity that has the smallest duration. Then you do the activity that has the lowest activity identification number. So we did the minimum slack. Now we'll move to the smallest duration. Does that make sense? So if you want to allocate resources, you are following the rules, and the rules are, these are the rules. They're here in front of you, and that's what I'm applying. I'm applying these rules to that exercise. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we've allocated this. Now, let me ask you, next, I either gonna do activity 2 or activity 4. Which one has the shortest duration?
2, sir.
Activity 2 is 6 days duration,
Activity 4.
and activity 4 has 2 days duration.
4.
The 4. So I can do activity 4 after. Let me ask you, how many people I need for activity 2? Sorry, for activity 4.
1
1 people.
1 person. For how many days?
for 4 days.
4 days.
For 2 days.
2
2
days.
days. 2 days.
For 2 days. Look, 2 days. I need it for 2 days. And I need 1 person per day.
Yeah.
So when can activity 4 start, guys?
At 6. After 6.
Okay, remember, we have 3 resources available. Have we used 3 resources here?
No.
So when can activity 4 start?
2 after activity 1.
After activity 1.
Absolutely. It could start after 2. Why? Because I do have the people available. I have 1 person. I have 1 person. That will bring me to a total of 3 people. Yeah? So that's why we are doing this activity 4 first, because it has the minimum duration. It has 2 days. Now notice that activity 2 cannot be done between days 2 and day 6. Can anybody tell me why activity 2 cannot be done between between days 2 and day 6?
Because
Sir,
they are
because
already.
the question says that there are only 3 programmers available.
Well,
Let me ask you, how many people do we have available?
no.
3 people.
3 people.
Yeah.
I already used 2 people here.
And 1 people here.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, can I start activity 2 in day 4?
Yeah. No. No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
Why no?
Yeah, we can use one. One,
You-
one,
Yeah.
people,
One
one man
is
can start.
available.
But remember, we're not splitting an activity. We're not splitting it. We're not going to say do it and then stop and then do it and then stop. We're doing it all at the same time. Because the activity needs 2 people. So if the activity needs one person, yes, you can start in day 4. But because this activity must be done by 2 people, you'll have to start it at the same time. So you can't put 2 people here because you will go over the available resources. You'll put the 2 people to start in day 6 for a duration of 6 days. So 6 to 7, 7 to 8, all the way to 12. I'm allocating 2 person per day for a duration of 6 days. Now, if activity 2 needed only 1 person, when could I have started activity 2?
At 4.
At day 4. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now let me ask you the next question. Now, notice, look at activity 4. Can you see how activity 4 is one, can you see between 4 and 6 how we have less people? Like are we using 3 people between day 4 and day 6?
Yes.
Here,
No.
here. Are we using 3 people here or are we using less?
Less.
Less. Only
Less.
2 people.
What does that tell you about activity 4?
Less.
Can I delay it, yes or no?
Yes.
Recommend.
Can I delay it, yes or no?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Like
I
there
can
is
delay it.
6 lag.
Even if I delay it, it's not going to have any problem on my project. Now, let's talk about the next activity. We've done 2, we've done 3, we've done 4. Between activity 5 and 6, could you tell me which one do I do first?
6.
6.
I do 6. Why?
Because it has 0 slack.
Because it has 0 slack. And when can I start activity 6? After which activity?
After 3.
After activity 3. When does activity 3 finish?
After activity 4.
Day 6.
Okay, so activity 6 can come after 3. And activity 3 finish at which day?
Day 6.
Day 6. So after day 6, I can start activity 6. Does that make sense?
But
Yeah.
we can start activity 6 at day 4 also.
No, we can't, because you need to finish activity 3. Look, there's a connection. You need to finish 3 before you do 6.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So then I can allocate here. When does activity 6 start?
Day 6.
Day 6 to day 10. That's 1 person.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Now, let me ask you, what do I do after activity 6?
Start activity 5.
Activity 5. Now, let me ask you, when can activity 5 start? Can I start
After
it
day 10.
After
What?
day 10.
after day 10?
After
Why,
day 10.
why after day 10?
After day
Don't
6.
have resource
It can't be after day 6. Why? Can anybody tell me why it can't be after day 6?
Allocate 3 people.
Because 3 people are already allocated. Can you see? It's already allocated. So although in principle I can do it before, but I can't because I don't have resources. So I have to do it after this period where I will have more resources available. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So activity 5, when can it start?
After day 10.
Day 10. And how many days does it need?
2.
So that's between 10 and 12. And you notice we cannot start it before. X, 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 X. Now, let me ask you, between day 10 and day 12, how many people am I using?
3.
3. So when can activity 7 start?
After day 12.
After day 12, that's correct, which means I have lost this start. It's not going to finish in day 12. I'll have to start it after day 12. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you notice that I have a slack, which means activity 4 could be delayed for 2 days. Even if we delay it, it's not going to delay anything else. Why? Well, activity 4 has to wait for everything else to finish before this activity could be completed. So instead of waiting, we might be able to delay activity 4 by 2 days and still finish on time. I'm using 2 people here, 2 here, 3 here, 3 here. That's all the information. 3, 1, 1, 2 and 1, 3, 2 and 1, 3, and so on. I know activity 1. When is the early start for activity 1, guys? When is the early start for activity 1?
0.
0. When is the early finish?
2.
Any slack?
No, no slack.
When is the early start for activity 2?
2.
2.
No, that's all. We can't use it.
Oh.
We already use resources. When is the early start?
After 6 days.
6. And when is the early finish?
10.
12.
11, 12, yeah.
6 to 12. Any slack?
Oh,
No. What about activity 3? When can it start?
Day 2.
2 to which day?
6.
What about activity 4?
Day
2 to 6.
2
Sorry?
to 4.
2 to 4, is it?
No,
Or
2
can I
to
do
4 to
3.
It could be early start is 2, but the latest I can finish it is day 6.
6.
I can start it in 2 if I want to, but I can finish it in day 6 if I want to. Why? Because I have a 2-day slack.
Yes.
Activity 5. When is the early start?
10.
10.
What is the early finish?
12.
Activity 6. Early start?
6.
Early
6. 10.
10. And finally, activity 7. Early start?
12.
12. And early finish?
14.
14.
And that's really all of that information. The only activity that have a slack is activity 4. Now, that's really...
The early start for activity 7 is 10.
No, because those activities, activity 2 and activity 5, are already using 3 resources.
Okay.
So that's why we can't start it until until day 12.
Yes, sir.
Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, you will have to practice that. I've tried to go slowly over it. This is something you need to practice. And we will have plenty of practice today in the tutorial. But that's really what you need to learn about. How do we actually go and make all of these scheduling of the right resources? What could be delayed? What can't be delayed? And so on. Now, you can notice here is we start with activity 1. Then we've done 3 because it had the lead slack. Then 4 because only one person required the resources required in its shortest duration. Then we've done 2. Then we've done 6. Then we've done 5. And then we've done 7. Which means, you notice how we said this activity here, 7 will be between day, initially it was between day 10 and day 12. Now it's become day 12 to day 14. As you can see here, it's between day 12 and day 14. It is no longer between day 10 and day 12 because things had changed. Does that make sense, my friends?
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Any questions?
No, sir.
All right. Now, my friends, as you know about me, I always give you a break towards halftime. So now is the halftime. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, continuing. This is an example of a project called the EMR project, the development of a handheld electronic medical device to be used by emergency medical technicians and paramedics. The problem with that specific project is that there's only 8 design engineers available. You cannot assign more people. There's only 8 to be assigned to the project due to the shortage of design engineers. So if you look on this specific project, if you look on day 1, there's 500% design engineers, which means we have 5 people being assigned. Day 2, we have 500. Can you follow my mouse? Can you see my mouse?
Yes.
Okay, 500 plus 400 plus 400 means I have, 1,300. I am over allocated. I only have 8 people, but I'm allocating 13 people. If you look here, in 400, 200, 300, 400, you see so many more people being allocated, then I actually go and have resources available. Now, when you want to decide which activities do you assign people to, you always try to think about the one that are on a critical path. They are very, very important to think about one on a critical path. But if you look here, you look like, in principle, before we add the project, it says, okay, this one will take 5 days. So you say, all right, this one will take 5 days, 0 to 5. It's going to start, you can see here, it's going to start on the 1st of the 1st and finish on the 1st of the 5th. So you see here, 1st of the 1st and 1st of the 5th. So you have that here. It's telling you second activity here. Let's say feature specific, actually let's internal specification. It's going to require 12 days. It's going to start 6th of January, finish 17th of January. And you look here, well, it's going to start 6th of January, finish 16th of January. So in principle, what this is doing, it's saying this is all my activities. This is their start date. This is their end date. This is how long they will take. Instead of putting it as a network diagram, it's been put in as a Gantt chart. So it's showing you graphically how long each activity will take. It's showing you how much slack do you have. It's showing you all of that information. So the slack is this one here, this color. The task is this color. The slack is, this is a slack, how much slack we have. It's highlighting all of that information. Now, in principle, we can do the project like that if we have enough resources. But because we do not have enough resources, what we need to do is we need to push those activities. If we were to go and follow the plan like that, I will need 72 hours of work on a Tuesday, 136 on a Wednesday, 136 on a Thursday, and so on. Now let me ask you a question, guys. How many resources I have for this project? How many resources I said we have for this project? We have what?
1. Can you please go back?
8 design engineers.
We have 8 design engineers. Yeah? If every design engineer is working for 8 hours a day, how many hours I have per day? I have 8 engineers. Every engineer is working for 8 hours a day. So how many hours do I have available?
64.
64. Now, on Tuesday, I need 72 hours of work. Do I have enough?
No.
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 All right, perfect. What about on Wednesday? Do I have enough?
No.
Thursday, I don't have enough. Friday, I don't have enough, and so on. Which day I do have enough resources? Which day I do have enough resources?
Wednesday?
Wednesday only, the 23rd of January. I only have one day enough resources, and for every other day, I do not have enough resources, which means all of these activities that are requiring more people needs to be pushed forward because I don't have enough people. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, guys? If you don't have enough people, you cannot over allocate people. I cannot say, yeah, I only have 1 employee, but I'm going to make him work 15 hours a day. That's not how you run a project.
There is a condition that
In normal conditions, 8 hours a day.
so there is a condition that we have 8 engineers right now, and every engineer must have worked 8 hours a day. Yeah.
Yeah, must work every day and must work 8 hours a day. That's correct.
If we go for the 8 engineers for the one day, then 8 hours a day. Maybe the active Tuesday is more better than Wednesday is good for that. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, some activities needs to be delayed, especially the activities that are not on the critical path. But if you want to finish it on time, you need to assign more people.
So we should have to work efficiently to use our resources according to the less days. Yeah.
Well, if it's a resource constraint, it has to be done by a certain time. If it's a time constraint, okay, then it cannot change. Sorry, if it's a resource constraint, which means you can't add more people, if it's going to take longer, so be it. It will take longer. If it's a time constraint, you will have to employ more people.
Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. So thank you.
You're welcome. So you notice here, guys, I only have 64 people, but look, this is how much I'm allocated. I have 64. You see this gray? Every day I have 64. But in reality, every day, except the last day, I have much more demand than how many people I have available. So this is something that needs to be sorted. If it's a time constrained project, the first thing you'll try to do is you'll try to push the activities that do have enough slack. But even with that, in this project, if it's going to be a time constraint, you must add more people. You can't finish it on time if you do not add more people. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now you notice here, let's look here. Let's go and have a look at those activities. You see how we said here, 500, 400, and 400? How many of these activities can I do? Can I do all of them?
Oh, we can only do one activity at a time.
Okay, so these activities, all between these three, which ones I have enough resources for?
Activity 3.
Okay, have a look, my friend. Remember, these activities could all start at the same time.
Parallel.
I have 400, 500, and 500. Can I do 3 and 4?
No.
Can I do 3 and 5?
We can go for 3 and 5. Yes.
Can you 500 and 400? Can you do that?
No.
Yes.
No, because we only have 800%. We have only 8 people.
We can do 3 and 4.
We can't because there's 500 plus 400, that's 900.
Yeah.
You
We
only
can
have
do 4 and
800.
5.
We can do
We
for
can
4
do
and
4
5.
and 5,
800.
800, which
Yeah.
means what's going to happen to activity 3? When can it start?
It can start after activity.
After 4 and 5, like
After 4 and 5, that's correct. So activity 3, which is internal spec, could start after 4 and 5, which is 800%. So if you look here, this is 4, this is 5. 5 finished on the 15th of January. Can you see this? Finish on the 15th of January, 5. And then 3 will start on the 16th of January. Why? Because you need to finish 4 and 5 first. I go back. I do 4 and 5 first. And then after I finish them, it will, 5 will finish on the 15th of January. Can you see that? Which means 6, when can it start? It can start not on the 1st of June, it could start on the 16th. Sorry, it doesn't mean it can start on the 6th of January. It could start on the 16th of January, which is after 4 and 5 are finished. 4,
yes.
finish on 12. 5, finish on 15. 6 starts after 15. So this one here start on the 16th of January. Does that make sense? Guys, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, any
Yes,
questions at all? All clear?
all good, sir.
Okay, so you look here, activity 3 is starting on the 16th of January. So you see here, it's been pushed till the 16th of January. It's not starting here, it's starting much later, which means the overall project duration has been increased from what we said before. It's going to finish on, let's say here 14th of February to now it's going to start now, finish on the 26th of February. So you see, the duration has been pushed because we do not have enough resources. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the impact of resource constraint scheduling is we no longer have flexibility. We are pushing things, we're using our Slack, we have more critical activities, the scheduling becomes much more complex. We may have more critical paths available, or the critical paths we had may no longer be appropriate. The sequence of activities, one after the other might totally change. Some activities might not be done at the same time. All of these are issues we need to consider. But what I want you to know is the following. You see, all of this that I'm teaching you the technical side of project management. But in reality, there are softwares which can do all of this for you. But I want you to understand the background. I want you to understand how the technical things work. But in practice, you will use Microsoft Project. It will have tools that allow leveling and allow other things to happen. But you as a project manager need to understand how things actually work in practice. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes you might have an activity. What you would say, oh, I'm going to start this activity and then stop and then start and then stop. Now, let me ask you a question. If you are preparing for my class, you go and you study between 9 and 12, then 12 to 3, you go and do something else, then 3 to 5, you come and do it, then 5 and 7, you do something else, then 7 to 12, you do and study. What's happening is you're splitting the work. If you're splitting the work, is the job going to take you longer, yes or no? If you split your work, is your work going to take longer?
Yes, it is.
It's going to take. The reason why it's going to take is because every time you stop the work, to be able to restart it and refocus, it will take you time. So a lot of time we say, oh, let's split the activity. The only time you can split the activity is if it's not going to take you a lot of time to start up the activity again or to shut down the activity again. I'll give you an example. If someone is working on the garden for me and they're putting digging a trench, if someone dig it and then they stop and then come back to dig it again, it's not going to take them a long time to set up a machine, do anything. They'll go and start digging straight away. If that's the case, it doesn't matter. We can split the activity. But if the activity, let's say, going to require bring a new machine, set up the machine, paint the machine, and then start, that means there's going to be a big startup and shut down every time I'm going to stop the activity and again start the activity. In this instance, we will say don't split it. So if there's going to be a big shutdown time and restart time, activities which might take that long might start taking much more longer. Why? Because every time I stop, there's a shutdown. Every time I restart, there's a startup. Then shut down, then start up, then my project will take much longer to go and complete. Now, it's very important to consider, how important is it for you to go and schedule resources? If you create a schedule before the project begins, it becomes, leaves time for, you should always leave time to consider what would happen if things were to go wrong. If a schedule delay is happening and if it's unacceptable, or the delay is too high, the risk of delay is too high, the assumption of being resource constrained can be reassessed. You can say, okay, I know we think we are resource constrained, but if I know I'm delaying my project, I know we're going to lose $1 million, then you say, oh, you know what, maybe we should really reconsider whether we're going to allocate more people to this specific project. If you're going to get a very big penalty, if the project going to take longer, by creating the schedule, you can then monitor, no, the way that I'm doing it now is not appropriate. We need to go and think about how do we go and add more people to get a job done. When you talk about resource schedules, if I know how many resources I need at any period of time, I'll be able to know how much I pay each resource, and I'll be able to know how much money I need at every period I'm running that specific project. So when you create the resource allocation, you'll be able to go and have the information to go and create what we call a time phase work package budget with dates. How much money I need at every period of time. If I go and create my schedule, it provides a quick means for a project manager to start thinking about what is the impact of unforeseen events. If the machine breaks down, if there's a turnover, is that going to go and delay how long my project is taking? Is there going to be a big problem? Yes or no? It will allow project managers to assess how much flexibility they have over certain resources. The resources who have a lot of slack, they have flexibility. The resources that are working on activities where there's no slack, they have no activity, no flexibility whatsoever. Now, how do we try to assign people to a project? The best thing to do is to try to assign people who have the right experience, the right qualifications to a specific job we are trying to go and do. We need to try to think, how can I create a balance between getting people to work on a job and between ensuring I develop the talents of people? Like, don't over allocate people, because you want to make sure that those people who might not know something, you want to develop their ability to learn how to do any specific activity. Don't pick people to work on your activities if their personality or their work habits, they don't really support what we're trying to do. Try to put people who have a lot of experience to work with people who don't have a lot of experience, because this way you'll be able to build the experience of people who don't have a lot of experience and allow them to go and socialize with people who don't have a lot of experience, not simply to learn from them, but also to feel belonging to that organization where you are currently working. A lot of times when we're working on a project, we work on multi projects. So a big organization, if you think about a company like Google, Google works on hundreds of projects at a time. Now, these resources who work on the projects might be working on more than my project. So you might have a developer who might work on 3 different projects all the time. Narayan, did you raise your hand? Narayan?
No, sorry, sir.
Okay, that's fine. Now, people like Google, as I said, might have people who work on more than one project. So we might have a developer who might be working on project 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if he needs to move to various projects, he needs to make sure he finished the first project. Now, when we're working on more than one project, we have problems we have to go and manage. Why? Whenever there's a delay on one project, it will create a delay for any other projects that are going to come after it. Sometimes we have inefficient resource application. In other words, the peaks and valleys of resource demands create scheduling problems and delays for projects. It's like I showed you before. I might be using sometimes 6 people, then 3 people, then 5 people, then 1 person, then 6 people, then 10 people. this is a lot of variation. If you are using a lot of inefficient variations, it will make it hard to go and start assigning resources from one project to another project. A third thing to consider is a resource bottleneck. A resource bottleneck is where a shortage of critical resources required for multiple projects cause a delay and schedule extension. Imagine this person is a specialized application developer who needs to work on project 1, project 2, and project 3. Because he's very much stuck in project 1, he cannot come to project 2 or project 3, and these projects are going to be delayed. And let me stop for a second and ask, does anybody have any questions, my friends? Are we all clear at the moment? Okay, I'm gonna assume
Yes, sir.
yes. If anybody is not clear, you know how to raise your hand, so please raise your hands and I'll interrupt and stop to continue answering your questions. Now, how do you manage the problem where there's a multi-project scheduling? A lot of companies, what they do, they create a project management office or project management department. The project management office, they can see the scheduling of all the resources across all the projects in that organization. To decide if they're going to allocate resources, they might go and implement a rule that says something like, first come, first serve. If you come first and you ask you need resources, I will give you those resources first. When you go and centralize your project management and have that office, all the projects starts being treated as part of one big mega projects. If you do not have enough resources, what they do is they say, all right, let me go and outsource some of my project work to reduce the number of projects that I'm currently working on internally. This way, I will free up resources to work on my projects, and in anything extra, we go do the right outsourcing. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a question for you. The costs must be based on the time period so that finance can allocate fundings. In other words, I need to know how much money I need every week I'm working to ensure that as a finance department, I allocate enough funds for the project at any period of time. My question to all of you is the following. If planned cost for 10 weeks, if my planned cost for a 10 weeks period is $4 million, and at week 5, I have spent $2.4 million, did I actually overspend by $400,000?
I think there might be two cases, sir. Either we are ahead of the schedule or we have overspent.
So either we are ahead of schedule,
Yeah,
or
we have overspent, like really.
or we have overspent. That's totally correct. If I spent more money, it doesn't mean that I have that I'm over budget or under budget. If I spent more, it could mean, well, yes, I spent more, but I already finished 6 weeks more than what I should finish. I might have been working very efficiently, and that's why I spent more money and I finished more job. So that's why maybe yes, maybe no. We need to know if we are also ahead of time in the schedule, or are we behind schedule? If we are behind schedule, then yes, we have spent more money than we should have spent. If we are just on schedule, but we spent more 400,000, that means I'm over budget. So you need to really ask yourself that question rather than simply judge straight away, yeah, we are over budget or we are under budget. And there's a specific chapter that I'll be explaining all of this, and you'll be making calculations for the budgeting. Guys, this is another reason why we need to schedule cost over various periods, because if I know I need $100 in week 1, that's what I call a planned value. This is my baseline. I need in week 1 $100. If I spend $200 in week 1, I can straight away compare it to how much I was planned to spend, and I know straight away, am I over budget or under budget? If I don't understand how much money I need per period of time, then what's going to happen is I won't be able to really go and make a comparison against a baseline or a budget plan, and I would never know whether I'm over budget, under budget, and I will never know whether I'm managing my project appropriately to deliver it within cost, within time, within specifications. Now, those people who are going to be sitting a quiz today and haven't attended the first 2 weeks, one of the main criteria of delivering projects is they must be delivered within time, within cost, within specifications, within the quality that is expected, and we need to make sure that the customers are accepting the projects that we are delivering. Ladies and gentlemen, how do we define and create a time phase budget? How do we know how much money we need at any point of time? Guys, we start with what we started doing a few weeks ago. We define the work that needs to be done. We identify how long do we need to complete each work package. We identify, okay, I know I need 6 days to finish a work package. Identify a time phase budget to complete the work package. If for 4 days of work, I am needing $100, does that mean I'm spending $25 per day? Or am I spending more money on some days, less money on other days? We need to understand a time phase budget, when I'm going to be assigning budget to a work package. Now, to know when you're going to assign a budget to work package, it's really relating to when am I going to be assigning people to a job. If I assign them in week 2, that's when I need to pay money. If I assign more in week 6, that's when I need to pay money. That's when you calculate the budget. Identify the resources needed to complete a work package. Identify who is responsible for that work unit. A single person responsible. And the reason why a single person, because you can ensure you are tracking that things are being done appropriately. Identify monitoring points for measuring progress. How well are we actually working? Are we working well? Are we not working well? It's very, very important to take all of that information into perspective. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you look here, you'll be able to go and see an example. That example basically tells you that we are trying to go and deliver a number of activities. It basically tells you how much money is that activity going to cost me per week. It's giving you all of those details so that you can know, am I using all of these activities at the same time, or am I using all of these activities at various times? You look here and you see, I know I need, let's say, I know I need to spend, let's say $50, you know, I know, let's say for activity 1 programmers, the programmer will cost me, let's say $2,000 per week, for example. I'm spending, let's say $20 in day 1, $15 in day 2, $15 in day 3. For the integration, I'm spending $60 in, let's say, period 3, $70 in period 4. Now, when you try to make calculations like that, you'll be able to know that period 1, I need 20. Period 2, I need 15. Period 3, I'm doing 2 activities. I need 15 and 60. I need 75. Period 4, I need 70. You can know the total per activity, and you can know the total for both activities together. But you know exactly, based on when you're allocating people, you know how much money are you going to have to pay per specific period of time. That's very important, because if you come and you start working on a project and you notice that, okay, in week 1, I have spent $40. Guys, what does that mean if in week 1 I've spent $40? What does that actually mean? If I spent $40 in week 1, what does that actually mean? Samita? Samita? Is Samita here? Salman?
Yes, sir.
If I spent $40 in week 1, what does that actually mean?
If you need $40, if you spend $40 in first week,
Yes.
sorry, can you repeat
If
the
I
question?
spent $40 in week 1,
Yep.
and I was planned to spend only $20, what does that
Yep.
actually mean?
4 weeks.
That means,
You need to so the work package duration is 4 weeks, right? So
but I'm talking about week 1. If in week 1 I was planning to spend only $20 and I spent 40,
yep,
does that mean I'm spending more or less?
you're spending more.
Spending
Obviously.
more. So that could potentially be an issue.
Yep.
So you look here, guys, this is another example. This is a network diagram. You know, we've done it before: early start, early finish, latest start, latest finish, you know, all of these activities. But when I assign resources to those activities, you'll be able to really know how much money you need at any point of time. You look here. If I have to say this activity here, design, it's only 1 day. Design entry forms, it's 2 days. Okay, great. So let's go here. Design, 1 day. How much am I going to spend in day 1? $5. Design entry forms, it's going to be $4 over 2 days, but I'm going to spend $2 on day 2 and $2 on day 3. Activity 3, it's $6. I'm going to spend 2, 2, and 2. Activity 4, it's $3, but I'm going to spend 2 in week 1 and 2 in week 5. So when you actually do this plan, you can notice in week 1, I need $5. The total I need is $5. And week 2, I need $6. That's 6 here. 6 plus 5 is $11. And week 3, I need another $4. That's 4. 4 plus 11 means cumulatively, I have a cost of $15. Day 4, I need $2 and 1, which is $3. I need 3 plus 15, $18. And that's how the project cost starts increasing until you reach the total planned project cost. My planned project cost for the whole project is $52 or whatever that budget is. Any questions, guys? Please ask me. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Now, guys, I told you before that we need to know how much money we need at each period. So you look here, we know period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4. If those periods 1 to 4 are months, if those 4 are months, I know how much I need for January. If 4 to 8 is a month, I know how much I need to February. If 8 to 12 is a month, I know how much I need to March. And that's the same thing here. You look here, January, I need 37,000. 11,000 for the hardware, 5,000 for the kernel, 20,000 for the architecture. You see, you assign the cost for the activity. February, that's what I need to be doing. I combine them together. That's how much money I need for February. March, April, May, June, July. If I combine all of these, I know how much the overall project is going to cost me. Boys, on me allocating people to it. And when I know how much the cost is going to be, I am able to go and create a budget that I can manage, and I can get funding from the finance department. Now, another thing you need to look about is the resource usage. Look in this example. Suzuki is going to be working on architecture design decision. If I look here, I'll need to go and find this activity. Architecture decision. It's going to cost me 20,000, and I know that I'm having Suzuki working on it here and here and here and here. That's why it's going to cost me money, and that's cost is spread out over 4 periods. He's going to work 20 hours, 24 hours, 40 hours, and 40 hours. But then in the 20th of January, he's going to spend 40 hours of work, 24 of which he's going to be working on hardware specifications, and 16 of which on architecture design. So when I'm going to be allocating cost to my work activities, the cost will only get allocated to the specific activity. So in Microsoft Project, you can assign that person, Suzuki, to that activity. You can tell the system how much money Suzuki gets per day. And this way, the system will calculate for you how much money you need to allocate to each activity at any period of time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's everything to do with my lecture for today. Do you have any questions? Does anybody have any questions, guys? Okay, no problem at all. Guys, for this week, you need to review the lecture slides and the notes you've taken. Thank you, Ranjit, for always responding to my questions, and all of you have been communicating with me today on the chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Please review the lecture slides and the notes you've taken, and tutorial materials I will be covering very shortly. Please read chapter 8, and all of these exercises we do must be known because they will be in your potentially quizzes and in your final exam. We have a quiz now, which you've already prepared for, but we do have another quiz that is coming up a bit later. So make sure you are also going and looking after the quiz and continue studying week by week, because I care about you and I want to make sure you guys will pass all of your subjects. Now, I want to say thank you very much for your time, for your effort, for everything you do in the subject. Make sure you join your tutorial all the way through, because I don't know what time we're going to start the quiz for you. There's a 5 p.m. tutorial. There's a 7 p.m. tutorial. The question you will receive will be different. They're all random questions. There's no point to ask your friend. The calculations are different. Everything is different. So 5 p.m., sit down, and sometime during the actual class, you will be asked to do the quiz. If during your tutorial today, what I'll do is I'll also go very quickly so that you will check which tutorial you've been allocated to. If there's any problem, we'll try to solve it immediately, because it's best to solve it straight away and finalize allocation today. It's very important you start working on your assignment now. We are week 4, I know, but we want to start working early to get feedback to ensure we are doing the best possible outcome. Now, again, thank you very much for your time. The lecture is finished. You can stop now. I want you to go to join your tutorial very shortly. So I'll have to go and log into the new link. For those of you who are currently here with me and are new to the class, you need to go and use the next link for the tutorial for us to be able to connect together. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And then we'll talk again very shortly. All the best.
Thank you, sir. See you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Thank you, sir.